How do you get a clean white background and light your subject if you only have one light? I'm going to show you on today's episode of
Ask David Bergman.
Hey there everybody, welcome back. Here I am, as always, answering your photography questions right here on Adorama TV. If you've got a photo question, you certainly know what to do by now. You just go to askdavidbergman.com, submit that form on the site, and I just might pick your question to answer right here on a future show. Remember, if you want to keep in touch with me, you can find all of my social media accounts and links to all of my other stuff, my live workshops, my one-on-one consultations, and of course you can get on my free email list. That's all at thedavidbergman.com. Make sure you check it out after you watch this video, of course. Okay, today's question was sent in by Logan A, and he wants to know, hey David, I'm just starting out with off-camera flash and have been taking pictures of my friends and family. I want to get a solid white background behind them, but I only have one light. I know I can probably make it white in the computer afterwards, but is there a way to do it when I'm shooting? Thank you. Thanks, Logan, for sending in that question. I do certainly appreciate it. And this is a really common issue when you're just starting out and you just don't have a lot of gear yet. Now, I'm not going to lie, having more lights definitely makes this easier. But let's see what we can do with just one strobe. Now, I need a subject here to photograph. Luckily, I have Erica here in the studio. Come on in, Erica. You all know Erica. Thank you so much for coming in today. And she's going to be our model today so that I can try to explain how this works. Now, like I said, with 3 or 4 lights, this is definitely easier to do. And the reason is, if you want a white background, a solid white background, you need to be able to make the background brighter than the foreground, right? To get solid white in the back, I don't just want solid white on her either. So I'm going to want to create more nice looking light on her to make a flattering portrait, but also have a lot of light hitting that background. So with 2 or 3 lights, what you want to do is you want to separate those two. So I would pull her away from the background as much as I could, light her how I want, and then put ideally 2 lights on the background, and you kind of put them on both sides and you can get a nice even light. Little sidebar tip, if you have 2 lights on the background, either with strip softboxes or even just bare, however you're lighting it, you don't want to just have them hitting either the center of that background or the sides, right? So you want to cross light those lights. So what I mean by that is the light on the far right, you want to aim it all the way at the far left of that background. And then the light on the left, you want to aim it all the way at the far right. That way the brightness of that light, the intensity of the light falls off as it goes, and it should, if you angle them just right, you should be able to get an even sweep, even amount of light all the way across that background. That's the goal, really. You don't want 2 hot spots on both sides. So if I had 3 lights, that's how I would do it. I would put 2 on the background and then 1 on her. But Logan, you only have 1 light, so let's see how we can do it. The first key is to have as white a background as possible. That's going to make your life easier. If you have a black background or a gray background, that's going to be challenging. So we're here in my studio, so I've got white background paper. That's the easiest way to do it. If you don't have that, if you just have a white wall, if you have access to that, or even if you're somewhere else and you don't have anything like that, you could use a piece of poster board. You could use a white sheet if you had something like that. It's not ideal, but you could make it work. Just something that's going to keep that background already starting out as bright as possible. That's going to make your life a little bit easier. But like I said now, with only 1 light, it's going to be a little bit harder to brighten up that background without overpowering the foreground. So how do we do it? Well, let's try to make some pictures here. The first key is really to have the biggest light source you can. So let me show you what I've got over here. Erica, you're perfect right there. First, let's talk about gear. Of course, I'm using my Canon EOS R1 body. I've got the 24-70 2.8, the RF version on the front here. On the side, everybody always asks about the Ninja. I've got the Atomos Ninja here. The only reason for that is so that you guys can see through the camera. I can record the HDMI out. The R1 has a full-size HDMI, which is really nice. So I go HDMI out to the Ninja, and I can record, you can see through the lens. On the top here, I've got my Westcott FJ-X3 M. That's to control my FJ400, which is right over there. That's my Westcott FJ400. And big light source, you want big light source? Okay, I've got the 7-foot white umbrella on there. If you don't have a 7-foot umbrella, you can do it with a smaller umbrella. The bigger the light source though, the more chance I have of lighting that whole background, right? If I'm too small of a light source, you may not get as much light going around the sides, and I just want the biggest light source possible. Also, I'm in a white room. I've got white walls. The ceiling, the floors aren't white, but there's going to be light bouncing up from the brown on the floor. There's light bouncing all over. So the bigger the light source, the light's going all over the place. That's going to help me fill in that background just a little bit. Also, Logan, I don't know what flash you have, but you can do this with a smaller flash. You can do this with a speed light if you need to. This just gives me more power, right? So with a speed light, if your power is too low, you can raise your ISO, you can do other things in camera to try to brighten up that image as much as possible. It'd be hard to do outdoors, but we're talking about indoors today. So I'm using my FJ400. It just gives me a lot of extra power. I don't have to worry about it. I can go up and down how I want. So let's start out how most people would start. I've got Erica right in front of the lens here. The background is a little bit far away, and I'm going to show you what happens. So I've got my, let's go to 5.0 on the flash. It's just kind of a guess, but let's see how this goes. And we've got the light off to the side so that I get this nice sort of Rembrandt light on her. And 1, 2, 3, boom. All right, so you can see how that looks, right? The light on her is very pretty. Done, nice big soft light. The background, okay, you know, it's a little gray. It's not solid white. It certainly is not solid white because that has to do with the distance of the light from between the light to Erica and the light to the background. That's the inverse square law. Again, I'm not going to get into the math. I will put a link to my inverse square law video so you can watch that if you really want to understand how the math works. But basically what it says is the ratio of light, how fast it drops off, how much darker it gets from the distance, the difference, the light to her and the light to the background. So in simple terms, if the distance is much less, if the light is hitting her and the light hitting the background is much closer, then you're going to have much more similar light power. If that makes sense, or brightness, if that makes sense, right? So, we want to get her closer to that light. So, excuse me, to the background. So Erica, if you don't mind, stepping all the way back there. So now her against that background, if I shoot just exactly like I just did, it's going to be underexposed. Let's do one frame just to show it. So she's a little underexposed. So now because she's much further away, I need to brighten up my power. So let's go to 5.5, let's say. Just a half stop and 1, 2, 3. Perfect. All right, now the light on her looks perfect. That light in the background is much brighter. It's white, right? It's not bright, overexposed white. This is really the way I would shoot if I only had one light. Big light source, and then you can play around with the positioning on this. I have it off to the side here so that I get sort of nice Rembrandt light on her. However, what the problem with that is the background, the right side is going to be darker than the left. So I would have to correct that in post. If I really wanted it solid white, there's just no way around it. Now I could put that light right behind me and shoot straight, just a full fill, you know, wash of even flat light. That's one way to shoot. It's a style, it's a look. It would make that background even. You may or may not want that. So I've done it that way. You know, if I want that nice solid white, having her as close to that background as possible. I'm also not getting shadows much because this light source is so big. If I was using a smaller light source, I probably would get a shadow against that background. So that might be an issue. So that's really how I would do it. But let's start to think about some other ways. You know, I can't just leave it with that, right? So what else can we do? Let's think about this for a second. The key, what I'm trying to do here is get more light on the background than on the foreground with only one light source. How do we do that? Well, what if I take another light? Let's bring one in from off camera here. And we'll bring this light in here. What if I took this light and put it right here? Now, what's going to happen? Step right up a little bit there. Yep. So if I fired this right here, because this FJ400 has a domed diffuser on the front, that light is going to go every direction, okay? So I'm going to get a lot of light hitting that background, right? And then the rest of the light is just going to go everywhere. And now, of course, what's going to happen to the light on Erica? It's going to be horrible, right? This is not very flattering light. It's not how I want to light her. It will give me a white background, but it's going to blow out on her. Let's take a look at how this looks. Now I'm going to turn off this big light, the big 7-foot here. I'm going to put A to sleep. B, I'm going to start up. Let's go, I don't know, I'm just guessing here. Let's go 6.5 on this because I want that background to be blown out white. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, boom. All right, so there we go. That is not ideal. That's really not what we want. So, but the background looks good. The background's nice and white. That's what we want. But I don't want all that lighting hitting her. So I remember in the old days watching old VHS tapes, I'm dating myself a little bit, from a guy named Dean Collins. And he was a master of light. This was in the film days. He was shooting medium format and large format film and doing everything in camera. We didn't have the easy accessibility to do these things in computers like we, in post-processing like we do today. So he had to bounce light all over the place using whiteboards and V-flats and, foam core, all kinds of things. So it taught me how to bounce light around. Well, so what if we tried to block the light that was hitting her so that bright, harsh light wasn't hitting her, but was still hitting the background? How do we do that? I could certainly use a V-flat. If you're in a studio, I have V-flats here, but those cost extra money. Maybe you want to do that, maybe you don't. You could take something like this, very fancy. This is a black piece of poster board that I literally have one piece of gaffer's tape and I have it taped to an inexpensive light stand. So she could hold it even, but let's make it easy and put it on a stand. So let's say we take that, so come back in position, and we put it right about there, okay? Now that light that's right there, it's gonna still hit the background because of that angle. This is not blocking it, but it's not hitting her now, okay? So let's see what that does. I'm gonna keep everything at the same exposure, and I could always take out that black card in post. So that's easy. Ready? 1, 2, boom. All right. So now we've still got our white background, but there's that harsh light is not hitting her. We've still got some light hitting her, and that's because we've got ceilings, we've got white walls. So there is still some light hitting her, but it's not the flattering light that I really want. So what do? I really would like to put a light right here and light her separately, but I only have one light, okay? So how do we do that? Well, Dean Collins taught me, let's now take a white piece of poster board. This stuff cost me 50 cents at an art store. And again, I have it taped to a simple stand. If you have a friend who can hold it, you could do that too. And I can put that right about here. And what's gonna happen now, if I angle this correctly, the light that's coming from over there, it's going around this black board, it's gonna hit this and bounce back into her. And we're gonna get some light here. Now, you lose a lot of intensity by doing that, right? The light's gotta bounce around, it's going a lot further, but that's what I want. Why? The background's gonna be brighter than the foreground. That's what I've been trying to do the whole time. So let's see how this works. Let's get this in here as close as I can. I'm gonna just eyeball this angle. This can be a little trial and error just to get the angle right, but let's get it right about there. I don't know if you can see Erica, but there we go. All right. She's in there already. All right, 1, 2, and boom. Now look at that. We've got some nicer light on her, right? How do we do that, right? That's exactly, it's just the bouncing of light. It's understanding how light travels and how to manipulate it with a very simple piece of white poster board. And like I said, you could have somebody hold it. I want to block the main light from hitting her. It's still hitting that background. Right now, if I was to measure it, that background is probably like 2 stops brighter than the foreground. And that now gives me that ratio that I want, right? Amazing. I love trying to figure out this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do this. You don't have to do it exactly like this. You could probably, I don't know, you could use different things to block it. Again, in the studio, I would use V-flats. Well, in the studio, I'd use more lights. But you could use big V-flats. That's going to give you more, just a little more control. A bigger bounce card, another V-flat. If you put a black V-flat on that side and made it really small so that you weren't blocking the background light, but then a big V-flat in front, you get nice big soft light coming in. There's a lot of things you could do here. Hey, it's future me. Sorry to barge in, but I thought of something else. Erica's already gone, but I thought of another way to get a nice solid white background and still get light on the foreground, and that is use your one light in a softbox as the background itself. You could take something like this. This is the Westcott Octa-L, the Rapid Box Octa-L, the big large one. I could put this behind her and use that as my background. Obviously, the light coming out of that, it's going to be nice and solid and bright and even, and that's my background. But then, obviously, there's no light on her. That's when you then take something like this bounce card that we use, this poster board, and you put it in front of her and bounce that light back in. You play with the angle. You could get nice Rembrandt light if you needed it. So that's another way to do it. Play around with that, work those angles, and you'll find a way. All right, back to the video. So Logan I hope that helps you. Again, easier with more than one light. I'm not going to lie about that, but you can do it with one light. You know what? If you can't light them separately, work with what you've got, right? That's the key to this. Actually, a lot of people say working with one light makes you a better photographer because you learn how to do this kind of stuff. You learn how light bounces around. So master that one light first. I often tell people when they say, should I buy more lights? I say, master that one light first and really learn how to get the most out of it before you then step up. Because now it's going to be easy. Once you have a second light, you just pop another light up, you brighten that background, and you're done, right? So learn how light works and you can really create almost anything that you can imagine. Thanks so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Erica, thank you so much. Thanks for coming in, putting up with us here today. Don't forget, you can send in your own photo questions by going to AskDavidBergman.com. If you like these videos, I do appreciate you hitting that like button. We always like that like button. Go ahead and do that. That helps me and the channel. And of course, subscribe to the Adorama YouTube channel. Go ahead and click that bell icon. You'll be notified when new shows come out from me and all the hosts here on Adorama TV. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope to see you next time right here on Ask David Bergman.